Blood stained the sand beneath Tom Blake's boots as he stepped into the transport shuttle. The metal restraints around his wrists felt heavier than the guilt crushing his chest. Through the small window, Earth grew smaller until it became just another dot among the stars. 3 months ago, he had been Sergeant Tom Blake of the Terran Marines, decorated for valor and respected by his men. Now he was prisoner number 4471, condemned to die for crimes he never committed. The shuttle docked with something massive. Tom felt the vibration through the hull as magnetic clamps locked into place. When the doors opened, artificial gravity pulled him forward into a corridor lined with alien guards. Their faces were hidden behind black masks, but their weapons were clearly visible. Energy rifles hummed with deadly power, ready to turn any prisoner into ash. "Move," one guard said in broken English. Tom recognized the voice as belonging to a Korthax, a species known for their brutality. The corridor stretched ahead like the throat of some metal beast, swallowing him deeper into its belly. The first thing that hit him was the noise. Even through thick walls, Tom could hear the roar of thousands of voices, the clash of metal on metal, and the wet sounds that meant someone was dying badly. The smell came next. Sweat, blood, fear, and something else he couldn't identify. Something alien and wrong. They passed through 3 security checkpoints before reaching the processing center. Here, a creature that looked like a walking insect sat behind a desk made of black metal. Its compound eyes reflected the harsh lights as it studied a data pad. "Another human," it said in perfect English, its voice like grinding gears. "How interesting. The Council sends us so few of your species." "Where am I?" Tom asked. The creature's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You are on Terminus Station. Prisoner 4471. This facility serves multiple purposes for the Galactic Council. It houses the most dangerous criminals from across known space. It provides entertainment for our noble patrons. And it ensures that threats to galactic peace are properly contained." Tom looked around the processing center. Other prisoners sat on metal benches waiting their turn. He saw species he recognized from military briefings, and others that were completely alien. All of them had the same look in their eyes, the hollow stare of people who had given up hope. "I want to speak to someone from the Terran embassy," Tom said. The insect creature's mandibles clicked faster. "There is no embassy here, human. There are no lawyers, no appeals, no rescue missions. There is only the arena." A door opened, and Administrator Vorth entered the room. Tom had heard of Vorth during his military service, a Zelkarian official known for his cruelty and efficiency. Vorth stood nearly 7 feet tall, his gray skin marked with ritual scars that indicated high rank among his people. His forearms moved with practiced grace as he reviewed Tom's file. "Sergeant Tom Blake," Vorth said, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. "Convicted of massacring civilians during the Proxima incident, the evidence against you was quite compelling." "I was framed," Tom said. "My commanding officer needed a scapegoat for his mistakes." "Perhaps," Vorth replied, "but that is no longer relevant. You are here now, and here you will remain until you die." Vorth gestured to a wall screen that flickered to life. The image showed a massive circular arena surrounded by rising tiers of seats. Thousands of alien spectators filled those seats, their voices creating a wall of sound that made Tom's ears ring even through the recording. Terminus Station was built around this arena, Vorth explained. Every day, prisoners fight for the entertainment of our patrons. Some fight beasts brought from distant worlds. Others fight each other. The strong survive a little longer. The weak provide brief amusement before they die. The screen showed a fight in progress. 2 humanoid creatures circled each other in the sand, both bleeding from multiple wounds. One carried a sword made of what looked like crystallized energy. The other fought with his bare hands, augmented with cybernetic claws. The crowd cheered as the sword fighter landed a devastating blow. "What happens if someone refuses to fight?" Tom asked. Vorth's expression didn't change. "They die anyway, but less quickly and with greater pain. The arena has ways of encouraging participation." Tom watched the screen as the fight ended. The creature with cybernetic claws lay motionless in the sand. Automated systems quickly removed the body while maintenance drones spread fresh sand over the bloodstains. The whole process took less than 2 minutes. "You will have 3 days to recover from your journey," Vorth continued. "During this time, you may observe other fights and learn the rules. You will be assigned quarters with other prisoners. Make whatever alliances you can. They may help you survive your first match. And if I win, then you fight again tomorrow, and the day after. That, and every day, until someone stronger or faster or luckier ends your life." Vorth paused, studying Tom with alien eyes that showed no emotion. "Though I admit, humans have proven surprisingly resilient in the arena. Your species seems to possess an unusual capacity for violence when cornered." Guards escorted Tom through more corridors to the prisoner quarters. The walls here were older, marked with scratches and stains that told stories of desperation and violence. They passed common areas where prisoners gathered in small groups, speaking in low voices and watching newcomers with calculating eyes. Tom's cell was a small room with a metal bed, a sanitation unit, and a single chair. His cellmate was already there, an elderly humanoid with pale blue skin and kind eyes. The alien looked up as Tom entered. "Welcome to hell," the alien said in accented English. "I am Dr. Finn. I was a medic before they brought me here." "What did you do?" Tom asked. "I treated wounded soldiers without asking which side they fought for," Finn replied. "Apparently this makes me a traitor to Galactic Order." Tom sat on his bed and looked around the small cell. Through a narrow window he could see the arena below. Even now, maintenance crews were preparing for tomorrow's matches. The sand looked fresh and clean, ready to soak up new blood. "How long have you been here?" Tom asked. 4 years, Finn said. "I survive by being useful. I patch up fighters between matches. It keeps me out of the arena mostly." "Mostly? Sometimes they need a demonstration of what happens to those who refuse to fight. When that happens, they send medics and engineers and other support personnel into the arena with hungry beasts." Tom lay back on his bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere above them, alien nobles were probably dining on exotic foods and planning their bets for tomorrow's entertainment. They saw the prisoners as nothing more than performing animals, existing solely for their amusement. But Tom Blake was not just any prisoner. He was a Terran Marine, trained to fight in conditions that would break most beings. He had survived battles that claimed the lives of better soldiers than himself, and he had no intention of dying quietly for alien entertainment. The arena wanted a show. Tom would give them one they would never forget. Tom's first glimpse of the arena floor came from the prisoner holding pens beneath the main structure. Metal grates above his head rattled as thousands of alien spectators took their seats. The sound was like thunder that never stopped, punctuated by bursts of laughter and the electronic chiming of betting systems. 3 days of watching other fights had taught Tom the basic rules. No outside weapons were allowed, but the arena itself contained hazards and tools that clever fighters could use. The sand hid pressure plates that could trigger spikes or energy blasts. Ancient weapons from conquered civilizations hung on the walls, free for anyone brave enough to claim them. Most importantly, the crowd's reaction influenced everything. Boring fights ended quickly with automated execution systems. Spectacular. Battles earned longer life and better treatment. "Your opponent today is Krigor the Destroyer," Dr. Finn said, checking Tom's basic armor one last time. The protection was minimal, just enough to prevent instant death and keep fights interesting. He has won 43 matches in the past 3 years. Most opponents don't last 5 minutes against him. Tom flexed his hands, feeling the lightweight gloves that would protect his knuckles without reducing his grip strength. "What's his weakness?" "Overconfidence," said a voice from nearby. Tom turned to see a scarred woman with cybernetic implants covering half her face. "I'm Razor. Been watching Krigor fight for 2 years. He always plays with his prey before killing them." "That's useful," Tom said. "What else?" Razor smiled, revealing teeth that had been replaced with metal. "He's strong and fast, but he fights like a beast. No strategy, just brute force. He relies on intimidation to make opponents freeze up." The conversation was interrupted by the sound of massive doors opening. Above them, light poured down through the entrance to the arena proper. Guards with shock prods herded Tom toward a lift platform that would carry him up to face the crowd. "Remember," Dr. Finn called after him, "the arena has ancient weapons, but most are trapped or cursed. The safest tools are the ones you make yourself." The lift rose slowly, giving Tom time to steady his breathing and focus his mind. He had fought in worse conditions during the war. Urban combat zones where every shadow might hide an enemy, orbital stations with limited gravity and atmosphere leaks, jungle worlds where the plants themselves were hostile. This was just another battlefield. The roar of the crowd hit him like a physical force as he emerged into the arena. Tier upon tier of alien faces surrounded him, their expressions ranging from bloodthirsty anticipation to bored indifference. In the premium boxes, he could see the wealthy patrons who paid the highest prices for the best views. They wore elaborate clothing and jewelry, marking them as the elite of galactic society. Administrator Vorth's voice boomed from speakers hidden throughout the arena. "Citizens of the galaxy, today we present a special match. In the red corner, a newcomer to our arena, the human known as Tom Blake, convicted of mass murder and sentenced to death by combat." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered, excited by the novelty of seeing a human fight. Others made dismissive sounds, clearly, expecting a quick and boring execution. "In the blue corner," Vorth continued, "a champion who needs no introduction. Kragor the Destroyer, winner of 43 consecutive matches and slayer of beings from 17 different worlds." The opposite entrance opened with a grinding of gears and chains. Kragor emerged into the light, and Tom understood immediately why the creature had earned his reputation. The alien stood 8 feet tall, with muscles that bulged beneath armor like scales. His head was elongated like a crocodile's, filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through metal. Every movement spoke of predatory grace and devastating power. The crowd erupted in approval. Clearly, Kragor was a favorite. Tom could see betting displays around the arena updating rapidly as spectators placed their wagers. The odds were heavily against him, no surprise there. Kragor stalked across the sand toward Tom, moving with the confidence of a creature that had never known defeat. His reptilian eyes fixed on Tom with the intensity of a natural predator studying prey. When he spoke, his voice was a low growl that carried clearly across the arena. "Another soft mammal for my collection," Kragor said in accented English. "I will make your death last long enough to please the crowd." Tom said nothing. He was busy studying the arena layout, noting the positions of weapon racks, hazard zones, and potential cover. The space was roughly circular, about 200 feet across. The sand was deeper in some areas than others, which might affect movement and footing. Ancient statues and decorative pillars provided limited cover, but most were positioned to benefit the spectator's view rather than fighter safety. A horn sounded, signaling the start of combat. Kragor charged immediately, covering the distance between them with surprising speed. His four arms spread wide, trying to trap Tom in a crushing embrace that would end the fight quickly. Tom dove to the side, rolling across the sand and coming up near one of the weapon racks. Krigor's momentum carried him past, and the crowd booed at the brief delay in violence. "Running already?" Krigor taunted, turning to face Tom again. "Your species truly is weak." Tom grabbed a spear from the weapon rack, testing its weight and balance. The point was sharp enough, but the shaft felt brittle, probably designed to break after minimal use, forcing fighters to rely on more primitive methods. Krigor charged again, this time more cautiously. Tom held his ground until the last moment, then thrust the spear forward in a precise strike aimed at the creature's center mass. The point skittered off Krigor's natural armor, barely scratching the surface, but Tom hadn't expected the spear to penetrate. As Krigor's momentum carried him forward, Tom twisted the weapon and used it as a lever, redirecting the alien's charge toward one of the arena's hazard zones. Krigor stumbled onto a pressure plate hidden in the sand. Energy beams erupted from hidden emitters designed to wound rather than kill instantly. Krigor roared in pain and fury as the beams burned through his armor-like scales, leaving smoking wounds across his back and shoulders. The crowd's reaction changed from boredom to excitement. This human was providing better entertainment than expected. Krigor spun around, his reptilian features twisted with rage. "Clever trick, mammal, but tricks will not save you from my claws." The alien was more cautious now, approaching slowly and watching for hidden traps. Tom backed away, keeping his distance while studying his opponent's movement patterns. Krigor favored his left side slightly, probably an old injury that hadn't healed properly. His breathing was heavier than it should be after such brief exertion, suggesting poor cardiovascular conditioning despite his impressive strength. Tom feinted left, then rolled right as Krigor lunged. This time he came up with a handful of sand, which he flung directly into the alien's eyes. Krigor bellowed and swung blindly, his claws missing Tom by inches. Moving quickly, Tom grabbed a broken piece of metal from the arena floor and drove it into the junction between Krigor's neck and shoulder. The improvised weapon penetrated deeper than the spear had, drawing a fountain of alien blood. Krigor spun and backhanded Tom across the arena. The blow sent him flying 20 feet, his body rolling across the sand until he fetched up against the arena wall. Pain exploded through his ribs, and he tasted blood in his mouth. The crowd roared its approval. This was the kind of violence they had paid to see. Tom struggled to his feet, fighting off dizziness and the urge to vomit. Krigor was already stalking toward him, alien blood streaming from the wound in his neck but showing no signs of serious weakness. "Now you begin to understand," Krigor said. "I have killed beings stronger and faster than you. Your death will be just another tally mark in my collection." Tom wiped blood from his mouth and smiled. "Maybe. But I notice you're bleeding a lot more than I am." It was true. Krigor's wounds were more serious than the alien wanted to admit. The energy beam burns had penetrated deeper than they appeared, and the improvised blade had nicked something important. Dark blood was pooling in the sand beneath the creature's feet. Krigor charged one final time, putting all his remaining strength into a devastating attack, meant to end the fight quickly. Tom waited until the last possible moment, then dropped flat and rolled between the alien's legs. As he came up behind Krigor, he grabbed the creature's tail and used it to pull himself up onto the alien's back. Krigor thrashed wildly, trying to dislodge him, but Tom held on with the desperate strength of a man fighting for his life. He wrapped his arm around the alien's thick neck, cutting off blood flow to the brain while staying out of reach of those deadly claws. The crowd was on its feet now, cheering and screaming as the two fighters struggled in the sand. Kragor's movements became sluggish as Tom's chokehold took effect. The alien's vision started to darken and his mighty arms began to weaken. With a final surge of strength, Kragor threw himself backward, trying to crush Tom against the arena wall. Tom held on until the moment of impact, then released his grip and rolled clear. Kragor's own weight and momentum drove him head-first into the stone, and he collapsed unconscious into the blood-stained sand. The arena fell silent for a moment, as if the crowd couldn't believe what they had witnessed. Then the cheering began, louder than anything Tom had heard since arriving at the station. Tom stood over his fallen opponent, breathing hard and trying to process what had just happened. He had won. Against all odds, despite being outmatched in size and strength, he had defeated one of the arena's champions. Administrator Vorth's voice echoed through the speakers. "The victor, Tom Blake of Terra," as guards entered the arena to remove Kragor's unconscious form. Tom looked up at the alien spectators who had been betting on his death moments before. Now they were cheering for him, thrilled by the unexpected entertainment he had provided. But Tom knew this was only the beginning. One victory meant nothing in a place designed to kill him slowly for the amusement of others. If he wanted to survive long enough to find a way out of this hell, he would need allies, weapons, and a plan. The arena had claimed many champions before him, but none of them had been Terran Marines. 2 weeks after defeating Kragor, Tom had won 4 more matches and earned a reputation that preceded him through the prison corridors. Other inmates no longer saw him as fresh meat. Instead, they watched him with the careful respect reserved for apex predators. Even the guards treated him differently, though their weapons never wavered. The victories had also earned him privileges. His cell was larger now, with an actual window instead of just a metal slit. The food was marginally better, real protein instead of synthetic paste. Most importantly, he had access to the common areas during recreation periods, where prisoners gathered to trade information and form the alliances that might keep them alive another day. Dr. Finn found him in the observation deck, watching the current match through reinforced glass. Below in the arena, a 4-armed creature from the Rigel system was fighting a pack of metallic beasts that moved like liquid mercury. The crowd seemed bored. This was clearly a punishment match rather than entertainment. "You've been asking questions," Finn said quietly, settling beside Tom on the metal bench. "I ask questions everywhere I go," Tom replied. "It's how you stay alive in hostile territory. These particular questions might get you killed faster than any arena match." Finn glanced around the observation deck, making sure no guards were within hearing distance. "People notice when someone starts asking about security rotations, guard schedules, and station layouts." Tom kept watching the fight below. The Mercury beasts had surrounded their opponent, and the outcome was no longer in doubt. "Are you warning me or recruiting me?" "That depends on your answer to a simple question," Finn said. "Are you planning something stupid or something brilliant?" Before Tom could answer, Razor appeared beside them. Her cybernetic implants gleamed in the artificial light as she scanned the area for threats. The scarred woman had a talent for moving silently through crowds, a skill that had served her well during her years as a thief in the Outer Rim territories. "He's been asking the right questions," Razor said without preamble. "About power systems, communication arrays, and ship docking procedures. Either he's planning an escape or he's working for the administration to identify troublemakers." Tom looked at both of them, weighing his options. Trust was a luxury in places like Terminus Station, but isolation was a death sentence. "What would you say if I told you I wasn't the only human on this station?" Finn and Razor exchanged glances. "Explain," Finn said. 3 days ago, I saw someone in the maintenance tunnels during a prisoner work detail. Human build, human movement patterns. But he wasn't wearing prisoner clothing. Tom turned to face them directly. Someone's been here long enough to blend in with the support staff. That's impossible, Razor said. All prisoners are accounted for. They have tracking implants, scheduled inspections, mandatory appearances. Unless someone found a way around those systems, Tom replied. Someone with enough time and resources to establish a deep cover identity. The conversation was interrupted by the sound of the arena horn. The match below had ended with the expected result. The Mercury beasts were already being herded back to their containment units, while maintenance drones cleaned up what remained of their opponent. Block 7 maintenance tunnel, Razor said, quietly. Tomorrow, during the third shift. If you're right about this, we need to know more. That night, Tom lay in his cell and stared at the ceiling while planning his approach. If there really was a hidden human presence on the station, it changed everything. But it could also be a trap, bait to lure desperate prisoners into revealing escape plans that could be sold to the administration for better treatment. The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Tom fought and won another match, this time against a cybernetically enhanced warrior from the Tau Ceti colonies. The fight was brutal but brief. Tom had learned to end matches quickly rather than provide extended entertainment. The longer a fight lasted, the more opportunities it gave the arena's automated systems to introduce new hazards. When the third shift began, Tom made his way to the maintenance tunnels through a route he had carefully mapped over the past week. The tunnels were dimly lit and filled with the constant hum of the station's life support systems. Steam from recycling plants created a perpetual fog that limited visibility to a few yards in any direction. He found Razor already waiting in Block 7, her enhanced vision allowing her to navigate the tunnels with ease. Together, they made their way deeper into the station's infrastructure, following paths that prisoner work details rarely accessed. They had been searching for nearly an hour when they heard voices speaking in low, urgent tones. Tom recognized one of them immediately. It was speaking English with the accent of someone from the North American Federation. Following the sound, they discovered a hidden chamber behind a maintenance panel that had been carefully modified to look undisturbed. Inside, 3 figures hunched over a collection of electronic equipment that definitely didn't belong to standard station operations. The leader was indeed human, a man in his 50s with gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. When he saw Tom and Razor emerge from the tunnel, his hand moved instinctively toward a weapon before recognition dawned in his eyes. "Well," the man said in perfect English, "I was wondering when you'd find us, Marine." Tom studied the man's face, noting details that suggested military background. The way he stood, the economical movements, the constant awareness of exits and potential threats, all marks of professional soldier training. "You know who I am," Tom said. "Former Admiral Robert Hayes, Terran Navy," the man replied. "And yes, I know exactly who you are, Sergeant Blake. Your court-martial was front-page news in every military publication." "Former Admiral?" Hayes smiled bitterly. "Turns out that questioning orders to bombard civilian targets is considered treason in some circles. I've been a guest of Terminus Station for the past 4 years. The other 2 figures in the chamber were aliens. A reptilian engineer from the Vega colonies, and an insectoid communications specialist whose species Tom didn't recognize. Both watched the conversation with interest, but didn't seem surprised by the revelation that Hayes and Tom knew each other. "How did you avoid the arena?" Razor asked. "Careful planning and useful skills," Hayes replied. "When I arrived, I convinced the administration that my engineering background made me more valuable in maintenance than entertainment. I've spent 4 years mapping every system on this station while building a network of prisoners who want something more than dying for. Alien amusement. Hayes gestured to the equipment around them. We've been gathering intelligence, establishing communication protocols, and identifying potential allies throughout the station. What we haven't had is the tactical expertise to turn all this preparation into actual results. Tom looked around the hidden chamber, noting the sophistication of the equipment and the careful organization of data files. This wasn't the desperate improvisation of doomed prisoners. It was a genuine intelligence operation run by someone who understood both strategy and patience. "What kind of results are you talking about?" Tom asked. "Complete destruction of Terminus." "Station," Hayes said without hesitation. "Not escape. That's been tried before and always fails. But if we can eliminate this facility and everyone on it, we deny the Galactic Council a strategic asset and send a message that humans don't accept slavery quietly." "You're talking about suicide," Razor said. "I'm talking about warfare," Hayes corrected. "The kind of asymmetric conflict that small forces use against superior enemies. We can't match their ships or their weapons, but we can make the cost of keeping us here higher than they're willing to pay." Tom considered the proposal. During his military career, he had seen similar situations where conventional victory was impossible, but strategic objectives could still be achieved through unconventional means. The key was identifying what the enemy valued most and threatening that specifically. "The station generates revenue," Tom said slowly. "Not just from gambling, but from the entire entertainment industry built around the arena. Destroying it costs them money and prestige." "Exactly," Hayes said, "and the timing is perfect. In 3 weeks, the station will host its 10th anniversary celebration. Every major figure in the galactic entertainment industry will be here, along with representatives from the Galactic Council itself. Maximum casualties, maximum political impact." "How many prisoners are part of your network?" Tom asked. 47 with confirmed reliability," Hayes replied. "Another dozen who can probably be trusted when the shooting starts. The rest will either help or hide, depending on their individual courage levels." Razor was studying the station schematics, displayed on one of the monitors. "These power distribution patterns, if you could overload the main reactor, would it take out the entire facility?" "Better than that," the reptilian engineer said, speaking for the first time. "The station's artificial gravity generators are tied into the main power grid. A cascade failure would create a localized gravitational anomaly that would tear apart anything within 1,000 kilometers. Tom felt a chill as the implications sank in. They weren't just talking about destroying a prison. They were planning to create a weapon that would eliminate every ship in the area, including any rescue vessels that might arrive. "The Galactic Council will retaliate against Earth," Tom said. Hayes nodded grimly. "Probably, but they were already planning to do that anyway. Your performances in the arena have convinced them that humans represent a significant military threat. They're just looking for an excuse to act." "How do you know that?" "Because I've been monitoring their communications for 4 years, the insectoid specialist said. "The High Curator Nex arrived last week specifically to observe human combat capabilities. His preliminary reports recommend preemptive action against Earth before your species can develop more advanced weapons." Tom stared at the alien, processing the implications. If the Galactic Council was already planning aggressive action against humanity, then the prisoners of Terminus Station had nothing left to lose. Their deaths were already predetermined. The only question was whether they would die quietly or take their enemies with them. "What do you need from me?" Tom asked. Hayes smiled for the first time since the conversation began. "Tactical coordination and combat leadership when the time comes. Plus, one more thing. You need to keep winning in the arena. The more spectacular your victories, the more attention you draw from the council representatives. We need them all here for the anniversary celebration." Turn myself into bait, Tom said. Turn yourself into a symbol, Hayes corrected. Show them that humanity doesn't break easily, even under the worst conditions. Make them afraid of what your species might become if left unchecked. Tom looked around the hidden chamber one more time, weighing the decision that would determine not just his own fate, but potentially the future relationship between humanity and the galactic community. It wasn't really a choice at all. The moment. He had been framed and sent to this place. His old life had ended. Now he had the opportunity to ensure his death served a purpose greater than alien entertainment. "When do we start?" he asked. The 10th anniversary celebration of Terminus Station transformed the facility into a showcase of galactic decadence. Luxury vessels crowded the docking bays as alien nobility arrived from across known space, their ships gleaming with precious metals and energy fields that painted shifting colors across the station's hull. Tom watched through his cell window as each new arrival brought more spectators hungry for the blood and violence that had made the arena famous throughout the galaxy. Over the past 3 weeks, Tom had become the station's premier attraction. His victories had grown increasingly spectacular, each one carefully orchestrated to capture the attention of visiting dignitaries and council observers. He had defeated champions from 15 different worlds, survived engineered death matches against creatures pulled from the darkest corners of space, and even won a 4-way elimination match where his opponents had been encouraged to work together against him. The crowds worshipped him now, but Tom understood the hollow nature of their adoration. They cheered his skill while secretly hoping to witness his spectacular death. He was their gladiator, their entertainment, a performing animal whose only value lay in providing distraction from their purposeless lives. High Curator Nex had attended every match for 2 weeks, his alien form motionless in the premium observation box, while 6 eyes tracked Tom's every movement. After each victory, the council representative would make extensive notes on a device that recorded not just combat data, but detailed behavioral analysis of human tactics and psychology. "He's cataloging your species," Hayes said during one of their final planning sessions in the hidden chamber. "Every technique you demonstrate, every adaptation you make, every sign of human military potential. His reports will determine how the Council responds to Earth." "Perfect," Tom replied. "The more data he thinks he's gathering, the more likely he is to stay for the finale." The conspiracy had grown to include 78 prisoners and 23 support staff members who had been carefully recruited through a combination of desperation and shared hatred for their captors. Hayes had spent months identifying individuals who possessed both the skills and motivation necessary for the mission ahead. The plan centered around the championship tournament scheduled for the celebration's climax. Tom would face multiple opponents in what was advertised as the ultimate gladiatorial spectacle, a match designed to last several hours and provide maximum entertainment value. While the arena held everyone's attention, coordinated sabotage teams would systematically disable the station's critical systems. The reactor containment fields are controlled from 3 separate locations, the reptilian engineer explained, pointing to station schematics that covered every surface of their hidden meeting room. Simultaneous failures at all 3 points will trigger a cascade overload that even the automated safety systems can't prevent. "How long do we have once the sequence starts?" Razor asked. 14 minutes until the reactor breaches its housing," Hayes replied. "Another 90 seconds after that before the gravitational generators lose cohesion. When that happens, the resulting space-time distortion will tear apart everything within 1,500 kilometers." Tom studied the escape routes marked on the diagrams, noting how few of them led to functional shuttle bays. "Most of us won't make it out." "Most of us were never going to make it out anyway," Hayes said bluntly. "The question is whether we die as victims or as soldiers." The morning of the championship tournament arrived with festivities that echoed through every corridor of the massive station. Holographic displays showed highlights from 10 years of arena combat, while vendors sold commemorative items to spectators, who believed they were about to witness the greatest gladiatorial match in galactic history. The irony would have been amusing if so many lives hadn't hung in the balance. Tom's opponents for the championship were already preparing in chambers adjacent to his own holding area. Through the monitoring systems, he could observe each of them. A cybernetically enhanced assassin whose body had been rebuilt with military-grade hardware, a warrior monk from the religious conflicts of the Vega system whose faith made him immune to pain or fear, and something that appeared to be a fusion of organic tissue and exotic technology from beyond the galactic rim. Dr. Finn performed the final equipment check with hands that remained steady despite their shared knowledge of what was coming. All. "Sabotage teams report ready," he whispered while pretending to examine Tom's armor. "Hayes confirms that the countdown begins the moment you enter the arena." The championship equipment was more elaborate than anything Tom had used before. An energy blade capable of cutting through reinforced metal, a personal shield generator that could deflect most projectile weapons, and armor that provided genuine protection rather than the minimal coverings used in standard matches. All of it had been modified by the conspiracy's technical specialists, though not in ways that would help Tom survive the coming battle. "Any last words of wisdom?" Tom asked as the lift platform prepared to carry him up to the arena floor. "Remember what you're fighting for," Razor said, her scarred face serious. "Not just revenge against these monsters, but hope for everyone back on Earth." The arena had been transformed for the anniversary celebration. The standard sand floor was gone, replaced by a complex environment featuring multiple levels, obstacles, and hazards designed to create the most visually spectacular combat possible. Weapons racks lined the walls, filled with exotic armaments from conquered civilizations. Energy barriers divided the space into sections that could be modified during the match to force fighters into different tactical situations. The crowd was the largest Tom had ever seen. Every seat was filled with alien spectators whose excited chatter created a wall of sound that made the arena's structure vibrate. In the premium observation areas, he could see the galaxy's elite adjusting their recording equipment for optimal viewing angles. They had paid enormous sums to witness what they believed would be the ultimate expression of gladiatorial combat. High Curator Nex occupied the place of honor in the central observation box, his elongated form leaning forward as all 6 eyes focused on Tom with predatory intensity. The council representative had traveled across the galaxy specifically for this match, and his presence represented everything the conspiracy was fighting against: the casual cruelty of beings who reduced other species to entertainment. Administrator Vorth's amplified voice boomed across the arena as the spectacle began. "Citizens of the galaxy, welcome to the 10th Anniversary Championship of Terminus Station. Today, you will witness combat between the greatest gladiators our facility has ever produced." The crowd's roar was deafening as Tom's opponents entered the arena from different entrances. The cyborg assassin moved with mechanical precision, its enhanced limbs gleaming under the arena lights. The warrior monk advanced with serene confidence, his ceremonial weapons blessed according to ancient religious traditions. The alien fusion creature defied easy description, its form shifting between states of matter in ways that hurt to observe directly. In the center position, Vorth continued, the human known as Tom Blake, winner of 37 consecutive matches and slayer of champions from across known space. Tom raised his energy blade in acknowledgement of the crowd's cheers, but his attention was focused on the countdown timer visible only to him on his armor's internal display. Hayes had synchronized the sabotage operations to begin exactly 3 minutes after the match started, giving the teams time to reach their positions while the spectators were fully engaged with the combat. The opening horn sounded, and all four combatants began moving immediately. The arena's design forced them to navigate obstacles and elevation changes while seeking advantageous positions for the inevitable confrontation. Tom chose a defensive approach, using cover to observe his opponent's capabilities while the sabotage countdown continued in the corner of his vision. The cyborg assassin struck first, its enhanced legs launching it across the arena in a leap that covered nearly 50 feet. Tom rolled aside as razor-sharp claws gouged deep furrows in the reinforced flooring where he had been standing. The crowd cheered at the near miss, already excited by the match's aggressive opening. Tom activated his energy blade and struck back, the weapon's cutting edge meeting the assassin's cybernetic armor in a shower of sparks. The blade penetrated several inches before stopping against internal reinforcement, but the damage was enough to leak coolant from the creature's enhanced systems. The warrior monk chose that moment to attack, his blessed weapons moving in patterns that seemed to bend reality around them. Tom barely got his shield generator active in time to deflect a strike that would have separated his head from his shoulders. The deflected energy left scorch marks on the arena wall behind him. Meanwhile, the alien fusion creature was doing something that made Tom's eyes water to watch. Its form was shifting between liquid and gas states while maintaining coherent structure, allowing it to flow around obstacles in ways that defied conventional physics. When it attacked, portions of its mass solidified into crystalline spikes that could pierce steel. The 3-minute mark passed, and Tom knew that throughout the station, Hayes' sabotage teams were beginning their coordinated assault on Terminus Station's critical systems. In engineering sections, power distribution nodes were being systematically overloaded. In the communication centers, transmission arrays were being destroyed with carefully placed explosives. In the reactor containment areas, specialized technicians were introducing subtle flaws that would cascade into catastrophic failure. Tom fought with desperate intensity, using every technique his military training had taught him, while the arena's automated systems introduced new hazards to increase the spectacle. Energy beams erupted from hidden emitters, forcing all four combatants to constantly adjust their positions. Sections of the floor became electrified or superheated, creating temporary barriers that changed the tactical situation moment by moment. The cyborg assassin's damaged cooling systems began to fail, causing its enhanced reflexes to slow as internal temperatures rose beyond safe parameters. Tom exploited the weakness ruthlessly, his energy blade finding gaps in the creature's armor, until sparks and fluid leaked from multiple wounds. The warrior monk proved more challenging, his religious training providing mental discipline that allowed him to ignore pain and injury while maintaining perfect focus on combat. His blessed weapons seemed to anticipate Tom's attacks, deflecting strikes that should have connected while launching counterattacks that came impossibly close to ending the match. 8 minutes into the fight, the first signs of sabotage became apparent to the spectators. Lights flickered throughout the arena complex as power distribution systems failed in carefully orchestrated sequence. Emergency announcements began, echoing through the corridors, but the crowd initially assumed they were part of the championship's dramatic presentation. High Curator Nex was the first to realize something was genuinely wrong. His multiple eyes noticed details that other observers missed, the way security personnel were moving with genuine urgency rather than scripted precision. The pattern of system failures that suggested coordinated attack rather than random malfunction. The alien dignitary activated his personal communication device and began issuing rapid orders in his native language. Within moments, armed response teams were mobilizing throughout the station, but they were already too late. Hayes had spent 4 years identifying every critical vulnerability, and his teams had struck them all simultaneously. In the arena, Tom felt the station's artificial gravity fluctuate as the first reactor containment field collapsed. The sensation was subtle, but unmistakable to anyone with experience in space-based combat. The revolution had begun, and there was no possibility of turning back. The fusion creature chose that moment to make its final attack, its alien form, expanding into a cloud of corrosive gas that could dissolve organic tissue on contact. Tom activated his armor's emergency seals and dove through the toxic cloud, his energy blade extended in a desperate strike at what he hoped was the creature's core. The blade connected with something solid, and the fusion creature collapsed into puddles of exotic matter that immediately began eating through the arena floor. One opponent down, 2 to go, and less than 6 minutes remaining before the reactor breach became irreversible. The cyborg assassin and warrior monk seemed to realize simultaneously that their survival depended on ending this match quickly. They attacked in coordination for the first time, their combined assault forcing Tom into a fighting retreat across the increasingly unstable arena floor. Around them, Terminus Station was beginning to tear itself apart as Hayes's sabotage reached its intended conclusion. The revolution had succeeded beyond their most optimistic projections, and now nothing could prevent the facility's complete destruction. Tom smiled as he fought, knowing that High Curator Nex and every other council representative was about to learn exactly what humanity was capable of when pushed beyond all reasonable limits. The station's death throes began with a sound like the universe screaming. Deep within Terminus Station's core, the reactor containment fields collapsed in precisely the sequence Hayes had calculated, sending cascade failures racing through every power distribution network. Emergency lighting bathed the arena in hellish red as the facility's automated systems desperately tried to contain damage that had been designed to be uncontainable. Tom drove his energy blade through the cyborg assassin's central processor, ending its threat with a shower of sparks and synthetic blood. The creature's enhanced limbs twitched once before going completely still. Around him, the arena floor was beginning to buckle as gravitational generators throughout the station started losing coherence. The warrior monk fought on with religious fervor, his blessed weapons moving in patterns that seemed to bend space itself. But his faith couldn't overcome the fundamental laws of physics that were unraveling throughout the facility. When a section of the arena wall collapsed, crushing his left arm, even his mental discipline couldn't ignore the reality of their situation. "You've doomed us all," the monk said in accented English, his serene expression finally showing cracks of fear. "No," Tom replied, parrying a desperate strike. "I've freed us all." High Curator Nex was screaming orders into his communication device, while his observation box shuddered under the impact of debris falling from the arena's collapsing ceiling. The council representative had finally understood what was happening, but his realization came far too late to change anything. "Lockdown protocols," Nex shouted to his security forces. "Seal all sections. Prevent prisoner movement." But Hayes had anticipated every countermeasure. The conspiracy's technical specialists had spent months introducing subtle modifications to the station's security systems, ensuring that lockdown procedures would actually accelerate the facility's destruction, rather than prevent it. Throughout Terminus Station, blast doors slammed shut in patterns that redirected explosive force toward critical structural points. Emergency bulkheads that should have contained damage instead channeled it into the reactor housing. Even the artificial gravity systems had been reprogrammed to create localized distortions that would tear apart anything caught within their influence. Tom finished his fight with the warrior monk by using the arena's environmental hazards against his opponent. A precisely timed strike sent the alien stumbling into an energy barrier that had been overloaded by the station's failing power grid. The monk's blessed weapons provided no protection against 10,000 volts of electrical current. Alone in the center of the arena, Tom looked up at the observation boxes where alien dignitaries were discovering that their emergency escape systems had been systematically sabotaged. Escape pods refused to launch. Communication arrays transmitted only static. Even their personal shields were failing as the station's power grid collapsed. Administrator Vorth appeared on the arena's communication system, his voice distorted by interference from the failing networks. "All security personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. The station is under coordinated attack." Too little. Too late. Hayes's revolution had succeeded beyond their most optimistic projections. The first major explosion came from the reactor housing, a blast that sent shockwaves through the station's entire structure. Tom felt the arena floor heave beneath his feet as gravitational fields fluctuated wildly. In the observation areas, alien spectators were thrown from their seats as artificial gravity shifted from standard Earth normal to nearly crushing intensity and back again. Emergency bulkheads throughout the facility began failing in cascade sequence. Each breach sent atmosphere rushing into space while structural supports buckled under stress they were never designed to handle. The station's elegant curves were twisting into geometric impossibilities as space-time itself became unstable. High Curator Nex abandoned his observation box and ran for the nearest escape route, his 6 eyes wide with terror as he finally understood the scope of the disaster unfolding around him. But every corridor he entered was blocked by debris or filled with toxic gas from ruptured life support systems. Hayes had ensured that the station's elite would share the fate they had imposed on so many others. Tom made his way across the collapsing arena toward the emergency bunker he had identified. Weeks earlier, the reinforced chamber was designed to protect arena maintenance equipment from the occasional explosive malfunction during matches. It wouldn't survive the station's complete destruction, but it might provide enough protection for him to witness the final moments of Terminus Station's existence. The second reactor explosion was larger than the first, powerful enough to crack the arena's outer wall and expose the combat floor to the vacuum of space. Emergency atmospheric barriers activated automatically, but they were failing along with every other system on the station. Through the fractures in the arena wall, Tom could see other sections of Terminus Station tearing themselves apart. Docking bays where luxury vessels had been moored were now twisted ruins venting atmosphere and debris into space. The residential quarters, where alien nobility had enjoyed premium accommodations, were collapsing floor by floor as gravitational distortions ripped through their structure. Most satisfying of all, the administrative section where Administrator Vorth had ruled over thousands of prisoners was now an expanding ball of superheated gas and twisted metal. Tom reached the emergency bunker just as the third and final reactor containment field collapsed. The explosion that followed was visible from several star systems away, a burst of energy that briefly outshone the local sun before collapsing into a gravitational anomaly that began consuming everything within its influence. The bunker's reinforced walls held for exactly 47 seconds before the gravitational cascade reached its location. Tom had just enough time to record a final message on his armor's emergency beacon before the station's death consumed everything. 3 days later, rescue ships from both human and alien fleets arrived at the coordinates where Terminus Station had once orbited. They found nothing but a massive crater in space-time itself, a wound in reality that would take decades to heal. Debris from the facility had been scattered across light years of space, most of it reduced to individual atoms by the forces that had torn the station apart. The rescue teams were preparing to leave when their sensors detected something impossible, a faint energy signature from the center of the gravitational crater. A single emergency beacon was still transmitting, somehow surviving in conditions that should have destroyed any known technology. Recovery operations took 6 hours and required equipment that pushed the boundaries of current science. When they finally reached the beacon's location, they found the twisted remains of an emergency bunker that had been compressed to a fraction of its original size by gravitational forces beyond imagination. Inside, somehow still alive despite exposure to conditions that should have been instantly fatal, they found Tom Blake. The Marine was unconscious and badly injured, but his vital signs were stable. More importantly, his armor's memory banks contained a complete record of everything that had happened aboard Terminus Station, including detailed documentation of the Galactic Council's plans for preemptive action against Earth. Tom woke up in a medical facility orbiting Mars, surrounded by military officials and diplomatic representatives from both human and alien governments. The first face he saw belonged to Admiral Sarah Chen, the highest-ranking officer in the Terran Defense Force. "Sergeant Blake," Admiral Chen said quietly, "you've been unconscious for 2 weeks. There are some things you need to know." Tom tried to sit up, wincing as his injuries reminded him of recent events. "Did any of the other prisoners survive?" "No," Chen replied. "You were the only one. But your sacrifice wasn't in vain. The evidence you recorded has changed everything." She gestured to a display screen that showed news feeds from across the galaxy. Every major network was covering the Terminus Station incident, but the story being told was very different from what Tom expected. High Curator Nex's personal logs were recovered from the wreckage, Chen explained. They contained detailed plans for what the Council called preventive pacification of human space. The attack was scheduled to begin within 6 months. Tom processed this information slowly. And now? Now the entire galactic community knows that the Council was planning unprovoked aggression against a species that had committed no crimes except being effective fighters, Chen said. The political backlash has been enormous. 3 Council members have already resigned, and the others are facing investigations that could destroy their careers. Admiral Chen activated another display that showed diplomatic footage from the past 2 weeks. Representatives from dozens of alien species were condemning the Council's actions and demanding reforms to prevent similar incidents in the future. More importantly, Chen continued, your actions aboard Terminus Station have become a symbol of human resilience throughout the galaxy. The story of a single Marine who brought down an entire prison facility has captured imaginations everywhere. Some species see it as inspiration for their own resistance movements. Others view it as a warning about what happens when humans are pushed too far. Tom looked out the medical facility's window at the Earth hanging in space below. The planet looked peaceful from this distance, showing no signs of the conflict that had nearly consumed it. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you get to choose," Admiral Chen replied. "The charges against you have been dropped and your record cleared. The evidence we recovered proves that you were framed by corrupt officers who have since been arrested. You can return to active duty with full honors, or you can accept a civilian position with the diplomatic corps. Or," Chen smiled, "or you can do what I suspect you really want to do. The Galactic Council has formally requested that you testify before their assembly about conditions aboard Terminus Station. Your testimony will be broadcast to every world in known space." Tom considered the offer. The thought of facing the aliens who had condemned him to that hellish facility was appealing, but not for the reasons they might expect. "When do we leave?" he asked. 2 months later, Tom stood before the full assembly of the Galactic Council, in their great chamber on the capital world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 1,000 species filled the vast amphitheater, their attention focused on the human who had survived impossible odds and lived to tell about it. The chamber fell silent as Tom began his testimony. He spoke for 3 hours without pause, describing in precise detail the horrors that had been perpetrated aboard Terminus Station. He named every prisoner he could remember, telling their stories and ensuring that their deaths would not be forgotten. But more than that, he used his testimony to deliver a message that resonated throughout the galaxy. Humanity would not accept slavery, regardless of the consequences. They would not be cowed by superior numbers or technology, and they would never stop fighting for freedom, even when victory seemed impossible. When Tom finished speaking, the assembly remained silent for nearly a minute. Then, slowly, representatives from dozens of species began to stand in acknowledgement of his words. The applause that followed lasted for 10 minutes and marked the beginning of a new era in galactic politics. The Galactic Council voted unanimously to outlaw gladiatorial combat throughout their territory. Terminus Station's destruction became a symbol of the price that civilizations paid when they forgot the value of individual dignity, and Tom Blake became the first human to receive the Council's highest honor for courage in the face of impossible odds. But the most important consequence of the Terminus Station incident was simpler than any political change. Throughout the galaxy, when alien species looked at humanity, they no longer saw primitive barbarians to be exploited or controlled. They saw the species that had produced Tom Blake, beings who would fight with desperate courage for principles that mattered more than their own survival. And that recognition changed everything. Years later, when historians studied the events that led to humanity's emergence as a major power in galactic politics, they would point to many factors: technological advancement, diplomatic skill, economic development, and military capability. But they would all agree that the real turning point came when a single Marine stood in the center of a smoking crater and proved that some things were worth fighting for, regardless of the cost.